So welcome, Rob. Thank you very much for coming to present and help us out and take us forward with cloud orchestration for the hybrid cloud architecture. So over to you, Rob. Thank you.
Greetings, gentlemen, and today's presentation is stated for cloud orchestration for the hybrid cloud architecture. And my name is Rob Rosas. The situation we will be venturing into is, as you see here, the main question is we need to undertake an analysis of the hybrid cloud architecture. Specifically, how can the use of standards help you gentlemen to integrate the existing Azure and AWS cloud architecture to look into the issues facing the supply chain, track, and trace area. The following presentation will help you understand the complication that's facing us, the analytic approach, the resolution, and then the conclusion and takeaways. The complication that we're facing, here are the gaps in the Azure and AWS cloud organizational constructs. Azure and AWS are designed and built with their existing capabilities independently. As you will see, each organization has design, implementation, and adaptability differences, and I will present that in the next few slides. Both organizations' resources that provide platform capabilities are organized differently. For example, Azure uses a very deliberate, straightforward approach, whereas AWS has several options in which they utilize to address the requirements. The next few bullets are self-explanatory, but specifically the bottom, where Microsoft Azure's focus is on data media and AWS is on application services. And you'll understand the difference when we display that. On the resolution, the analytic approach that I've used is designed to help you understand the similarities and differences between Azure's and AWS's cloud architectures. The steps that I took are as follows. The first step consisted of documenting or mapping each of the architectures into object-based elements that were decomposed or broken down into the class, stereotype, type, and subtype. Next, categorized all the decomposed objects to the lead object groups or layers, identifying new relationships in a matrix view. Then we align the lead objects to the Azure reference model. Next, we align those same lead objects to the AWS reference model. And finally, we developed a cloud orchestration model that uses an integrated composition matrix. This first display is the Azure matrix that identifies each, if you look at the cursor, each one of the components in the supply chain, track, and trace cloud orchestration. And the icons to the right of these are the Azure icons that have been mapped to each one of these steps. I'll take you now to the composition matrix that we utilized in order to gain this understanding in this display. As you can see here, using the cloud orchestration map, in the highlighted area specifically with the red boxes, these are the levels that were all looked at when we use the decomposed view to map everything back to the lead objects that you see on the left-hand side here. All of these correlate to the icons, as you can see here with these icons right next to the red boxes, back into this view here. And we won't go through all of them, but they are all in detail explained as to what they are. Next is the AWS supply chain track and trace cloud orchestration. The concept and principles that were applied are the same, but you can see the difference in the icons that AWS has used for the track and supply chain track and trace composition. Many of these are similar. However, you'll see in the next composition view that there are differences, and I want you to understand the differences and what they consist of. For the AWS cloud composition, the same approach that you saw before with the Azure. However, now we're looking at the AWS aspect of it and how it correlates over to the lead objects on the left-hand side, as you see here. Again, the concept is with the red boxes to identify which icons were used, and in this case, as an example, for AWS business applications and Alexa for businesses. Now you can see how this was used in various parts of this composition mapped illustration. For the contextual cloud orchestration view, you can see both. This is the combined or integrated view, if you will, of both the Azure and AWS compose or composition matrix view. The icons are sat right next to each other for the original map that we used as a framework to begin understanding the breakdown and the grouping of all of the lead objects and how they correlate to this fundamental matrix view. You can see on the left-hand side and the right-hand side with the associated icons to identify which type of icons have been utilized. Some are different, and that's just a different view, but the actual content will come up in the next slide. This is the slide that will give you a deeper and a better understanding as to what Azure and AWS icon similarities consist of and what the differences look like. I felt this was important in decomposing all the components at the very beginning, and then when we composed everything against the lead objects, this identifies which components of this map share similar components from Azure and AWS. As an example, this very top one of the Active Directory, that when you go to AWS, they use a platform service, as does Azure. Very next component are web apps, whereas AWS utilizes application components, Azure uses platform service. So all of these icons, you can see what the difference is, and overall there's only 4 areas where there are similarities. The remainder of them, there are differences, and that's very key and important to understand what areas can be looked at to identify pain points, which ones you can work on to gain efficiencies and actually improve, which common and standards that lead practice offers, so you can actually implement options to gain efficiencies and apply cost-cutting approaches. And in this example here that you see here, there's many areas that are that can gain to improve in many areas. Not necessarily saying there's a one-for-one requirement, as you can see in the Internet of Things at the bottom left here. However, you can see the fundamental approach that each organization looks at. And this is important from your level at the executives all the way down to the floor level of factories, so organizations can understand the approach that each Azure and AWS organization looks at, and in some cases fundamentally different, and others there are similar. And that's the point of this slide here. Now, what the conclusion is, as you can see, there are differences between Azure and AWS Cloud Supply Chain Track and Trace architectures and capabilities. They are designed, documented, implemented, and improved on very differently, which leads to increased complexities in understanding where gaps or pain points exist. By utilizing leading practice principles and concepts, you now have a clear understanding of your hybrid cloud architecture based on the mapped relationships to your various architecture services. By applying lead enterprise and industry standards, this new understanding enables you to mitigate the gaps that were identified, reduce complexity, increase efficiencies, and when all of this serves to transform your organization to function as a cloud outperformer. I hope this really clears up your understanding and helps to serve you in a better fashion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. A most informative presentation that will certainly guide us forward.